Hi, welcome everyone. We wanted to let you know you're in the right place to visit with Operation Parent out of Kentucky and Sarah Kimmel with the founder of Family Tech. So while we're loading everybody up to learn with us today, I want to tell you a couple things about our system. If you tap on, if you are on your computer and you see an orange arrow, tap on that and open up all your features. That's going to be your control panel. We're going to use the question feature today to interact with the audience. That's in the middle of your control panel. You're going to send both questions and comments there. They're going to come privately to Amanda Flaherty and I. Want to thank Amanda so much for being on the controls of the webinar today. But those questions will come to us privately, and we will get right back to you online. We have some great handouts lined up for you today. One of them is a tech contract from Sarah Kimmel's business, Family Tech, and the other one is from Family Online Safety Institute. So that's for all the gadgets that a youth might have. If you decide to gift those, there's a contract or some conversations that you could glean out of the contract to have with your youth as you're giving them a technology device. Um, we're we're going to caution you about as you give those technology gadgets as gifts, they are sometimes that blurs the line of ownership. So just make sure that you prepare for that as you're planning for conversations and gifting. And what I mean by that is offering as a gift might make that line a little blurry. And so we can talk about that a little bit more in the Q&A section if you'd like. So I wanted to let you know we also have Q&A at the end, which I just mentioned. So you will be very excited about that part. It's usually one of our most favorite parts of the webinar. And so you can enter questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll get those lined up to ask Sarah at the end. So I know you have a lot of great questions for her. I just want to let you know you can enter those at any time during the presentation, and we'll get those ready for her. We are recording the presentation, and it's going to be sent in a follow-up email 24 hours after this webinar. You'll need to check your email that you registered for the webinar with. If you're looking for that, just make sure you're utilizing the same email. We're also going to provide there a certificate of attendance. So that's also going to be attached to that same email. So just give us a little bit of time and you'll get both of those, the recording of the webinar as well as the certificate of attendance. As we close the webinar, there is going to be a short survey sent to you, and that it's only going to take about 2 minutes to complete. And our audience, if you are a returning viewer, you all have been so generous on that survey, and it really has guided the webinar program as we move forward. So please continue to be generous with your time and your feedback there, and know that we use every bit of that as we continue to build the webinar program. So now it is my distinct pleasure to start the introduction for Sarah. Oh, first I must mention it's a great time to just do a quick registration for our next upcoming webinars. The next one is coming up rather quickly on September the 12th with the Hope Squad. And we're going to talk about peer-to-peer suicide prevention and how we can make strides there in helping peers. And then we're also going to cover at the end of September, thankfully, Sarah Kimmel is going to come back and do a second session with us to help us ramp up our tech skills. So go ahead and mark both of those on your calendar and use the QR code to get registered for those webinars. It just takes a minute to do so. Like I mentioned, we're really fortunate to have Sarah join us today. We got introduced to Sarah from my sister-in-law, who is utilizing all of her quick tips and action steps via YouTube. So Sarah puts a lot of content out on YouTube and Instagram, and it's really easy to follow, easy to understand, and it's very visual. So if you are looking for help like that, it's already helped me with several things in my own home. I want you to follow Sarah in all the social media places under her um, handle is at Family Tech. So Family Tech being all one word. So Sarah is a tech expert. She's been leading in the tech field for over 20 years. She's really passionate about educating others, helping others with tech. I'm sure she is the tech department for her whole entire family. What I love about her the most is she is hilarious and she has a very balanced perspective of all the sides of technology. Our teens world is technology immersed, and she teaches us how to join them as well as protect them. And I'm really proud of all the work that she's doing and all the people that she's helping. This is going to be a super fun afternoon. Sarah's going to strengthen our technology strategies in our own homes. So we're super excited to get started with Sarah.
Hello. Thank you so much,
Sarah.
Michelle.
You
Uh, I'm
bet.
I'm so excited to be here. I love helping families understand and manage the technology in their home. I have been an IT manager for over 20 years. During that time, all of my friends would ask me questions about the technology in their homes, like I got a virus or what kind of phone should I get my kid, etc. So I decided to start a blog. This is back in 2009. So just to have a central place for everyone to go for the advice over the years. I've added a podcast and a YouTube channel, and I share quick tips on Instagram too. So I'm often on the local news. I just really love helping families be more confident with technology. I want you to feel like, okay, I've got this when it comes to technology in your home. But today I am focused on helping you with digital parenting. So, what the key takeaways are for this? And I feel like I'm not presenting my screen. If somebody can let me know that or not, but um, maybe.
You're presenting, Sarah.
Oh, okay. Like I'm not seeing it like I did when Michelle was presenting. So
Yep, that's just how it works.
got it. I'm so sorry. Okay. So the key takeaways are know how to set expectations on technology, learn how to navigate social media and what devices you should allow, and kind of what ages. We'll get into that. And discover ways to communicate with your family about technology. So that is kind of what our focus is for this particular presentation. Like I said, I kind of handle all areas of technology through my social media platforms. So, what exactly is digital parenting? Um, Digital parenting is about guiding, supporting, educating children and teenagers in their use of digital devices, technology, and the internet. As technology becomes increasingly integrated into our daily lives, digital parenting has become an important aspect of modern parenting. So, digital parenting involves not only teaching children how to use technology responsibly, and safely, but also helping them to develop critical thinking skills, empathy, and a healthy balance between their online and offline activities. It addresses various aspects of the child's digital life, including internet safety, online etiquette, managing screen time, understanding privacy settings, avoiding cyberbullying, and being aware of potential risks and dangers of the digital world. There's 6 main aspects that we're going to go over today of digital parenting. The first one is learning. And we're going to get deeper into all these. So I'm just kind of going to run through them really fast. So learning, setting expectations, training, management, monitoring, and communicating. So we're going to dig into our first area of digital parenting, which is learning. So I always kind of compare learning about technology to a disease, which might sound a little counterintuitive, but when your child is diagnosed with a disease, say they're diagnosed with diabetes or something else, an autoimmune disease, what you're going to do is get on Google. You're going to research everything you can about that disease so that you can help keep your family safe. You can help make sure your child is healthy. You're going to know that disease backward and forward because you need it to help keep your child in a healthy space. Well, the same thing doesn't apply to technology for the most part. We are just handing over devices to our children and just kind of going with the flow and not really taking the time to learn exactly what it is we're handing over. And that's a huge miss in digital parenting when we're not taking the time to research and really understand the technology that we're handing over. Even if you're not a tech expert, it's just fine. You will be able to learn enough to keep your child safe. Just like you don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to know everything about how to treat this disease. You don't have to be that expert, but you can be the expert of keeping your child safe. So that's what learning is all about. So how do you do that, right? The very first thing you want to do is Google. So say, your child wants a phone or wants a Nintendo, or a new app, anything that your child is expressing interest in. The first thing I would do is Google, is such and such safe for kids? Is a Nintendo Switch safe for kids? And you're going to get a lot of articles that will explain kind of the pitfalls and dangers of that particular device or app. Now, some of these can be really skewed to one direction. So you want to make sure you have a balanced view of what that device or app can do. But getting is it safe for kids first off the bat is going to be important. The next thing is you can look at ratings. So, look at the Amazon reviews, look at the actual rating. So if it's an app, you can go into the Google Play Store or the App Store and see exactly what it's rated. So, there's E for everyone, there's T for teen. So there's a lot that can go into those ratings, and people have done the research for you and kind of let you know exactly what age group that is appropriate for. So look at those ratings and make sure you understand what is going into those ratings. The next one is look up how to use. Like I said, with the first one, with the safe for kids, you're going to get a lot of kind of one-sided, maybe I am a parent that's super concerned about this, and so I've written this article. So the how to use is going to be a very unbiased opinion of exactly what the device or app or whatever other technology is that it can do. So look up how to use such and such. It should give you detailed descriptions of every setting. Then the next is search parental controls for. Every device has built-in parental controls. The Nintendo has built-in parental controls. The iPhone has a built-in parental controls. Android has somewhat built-in parental controls, but Google Family Link is the Android parental controls. So every device or application, not all applications, but almost every device has built-in parental controls. So make sure you search exactly what kind of parental controls you can set for that device or application. And like I said, some applications do have built-in parental controls. TikTok has built-in parental controls, Discord, Snapchat, etc. So just make sure you understand what those controls can do. The next thing you're going to do is play with it yourself. So download the app or game, look through all of the settings that it can do, and use it for about a week so that you can see exactly what kind of content you're going to interact with, what kind of messages you can send or receive, really understand that platform, whether it's a phone or a device or an application. Sign up for it yourself. A lot of people will allow their child on Discord and not sign up for an account themselves, which is, again, a huge miss because you really want to understand exactly what the platform can do. And you can usually set up parental controls if you also have an account on that platform. So, download it, or, get it and use it for about a week and look through every setting. So, tap on the settings icon, go through every single setting and see exactly what it can do. And so then the next thing you're going to do is talk about it with your kid. I actually love to ask my children for a presentation on what they want. So, and they want it bad enough, they're going to do the work and make this presentation for you. So if they want a phone or if they want a specific application, and they can present to you the dangers and positives of this application or device. And what I really like about that is it helps them to see critically. So if they present to you and it's all positives, you can go back to them and say, well, everything is not all positive. So you really need to look up the cons and see what the pitfalls are and what the dangers are and present that to me as well. And then this really helps them understand if it is appropriate for them. And then, so after this presentation, you can discuss. So, okay, I've done the research too. So, as you presented this to me, you've missed this and this and this. What do you think about that? Just really discuss what you both have found, because maybe they found a lot of more positives than you found, and you found a lot more negatives. So the combined effort will help you really get a full picture of what that application or device can do. So discuss that and then come to an understanding. And we're going to talk more about these conversations in a little bit, but come to an understanding about that application. So, okay, hey, this was a great presentation. We've talked about the dangers. This is what I'm concerned about. And so because of these dangers and this concern, then, we're going to wait 6 months and let's revisit it then. But give them that kind of deadline. Come to an understanding of, okay, I'm going to say no right now, and then we can revisit it now. In 6 months or a year or whatever, or when you're this such and such age. Or you can say, okay, yes, I'm going to allow this now, but these are the stipulations. Like, this is how you can lose access to it. This is how you can, I'm going to set up these monitoring platforms or these parental controls inside the app. So make sure they understand that, okay, yes, I'm allowing it, but this is going to be the rules that are associated with it. And so that leads into setting ground rules and expectations. So I'm going to expect you to, make sure you are posting appropriate things and things like that. And so set an expectation of what is going to happen in that app. So that kind of leads directly into the next section, which is setting expectations. So if you have a Christmas list, say I was writing down this Christmas list. I've got everything that I really, really want for Christmas, but I folded it up and I put it in a drawer and I didn't give it to anybody. Well, then Christmas comes around, I get all these wonderful presents. I'm so excited, but nothing that was on my list. So I'm going to have a really bad experience about Christmas because I didn't share that I was expecting to get these wonderful things for Christmas instead of, letting you know that this is what I would like, and then I can have the things that I wanted for Christmas. So setting expectations is just really getting on the same page, letting people know that this is what's expected and this is what is desired, and then you can have those expectations met. So getting on the same page with setting expectations. So what kind of things should you set expectations around? And I know Michelle touched on this briefly, and so let's talk about ownership. So if you hand over a device for Christmas, it can maybe seem like, okay, I own this device. I was given it for Christmas. This is mine. But what the actual scenario is, and I usually like to compare this to software licensing. So if I get a video game, I don't own that video game. I own a license to play that video game. It's that big, long end user license agreement that you have never, ever read. And it's really just telling you that you don't own the game, you don't have the ability to reverse engineer the game, change the code. You have to play that game as it is. And so you don't own that game. You own a license to play that game. So even if you are giving the gift, giving it as a gift for Christmas or a birthday or something like that, you can compare it to giving them a game. So if you hand over, a game, you can say, hey, look, this doesn't say that you own this game. You are not the only person that can play this game. You have to abide by the rules set forth with the game. So this is a license to play the game. This is a license to use the device. So who owns the device? The parent owns the device, and you just have a license to utilize the device. And then who owns the content? This is a really important concept for kids to understand as well when you are talking about posting content. So I take a picture of myself and I post it to Instagram. Who actually owns that photo? Well, Instagram owns that photo because you have uploaded it to Instagram. So the copyrights and things like that, Instagram really has the ability to take that photo and use it for any purposes they want because you are uploading it to their platform. So that's what you really need to help them understand is who owns the content that you're posting, because it's not you and it can never be fully private. And we'll talk about privacy in just a minute. You can see that on the slide. But who owns the content is another really big piece of the puzzle. So who owns the devices? Who owns the content? Neither of them is the child for sure. So then let's talk about age. So setting expectations around age. And I never like to say that a hard, fast rule. Okay, at 8 years old or at 10 years old or at 12 years old or at 13 years old, this is when you get this particular piece of technology, because every child is different. Every family is different. Children in the same family are different. And so what's right for one kid might not be appropriate for the next kid. And so you really have to judge, so if they're saying, okay, at what age can I get the phone? You can really talk about expectations. And so, some of the expectations around showing that you're responsible enough for something like a phone is, are you finishing your homework? Are you doing your chores without being asked? Are you taking care of the possessions that you already have? If they have like a Nintendo Switch and it's always on the floor or it's not being well taken care of, you can say, hey, I'm not going to get you a phone until you know how to take care of the technology that you already own, or not own, but have the license to utilize. And showing maturity in decision making. So a lot of these things you can set an age, but you can also say, okay, but I'm going to take these things into consideration as well. So you might be able to earn it earlier, or it might be delayed. We might not be able to give this to you at this particular time because of you're not taking care of your possessions. You're not doing your chores without being asked. You are not getting your homework done. So all of these things can kind of go into when I will get a phone or a particular social media app. And we'll go into social media in a little bit about kind of stepping them through this process. But when they give you this presentation, or you're talking about whether or not to give them a device or a phone, you can talk about these different these different milestones that they'll need to accomplish in order to get access to that. And so then privacy is another really big discussion that you need to have that can set these expectations of what happens to them online. So I always say there is no privacy online. Nobody has privacy online. I don't have privacy online. My child can have no expectation of privacy online. Anything that you write or do online, I always say can and will be used against you on the internet. And it's very true, because even if I think I'm sending a private message to a particular person, they could screenshot that message, share it with somebody else. If I send a photo, I can take a picture of it from another device. There are so many ways that content can be used against you or shared with somebody you don't want it to be shared with. So I always say, if you wouldn't want me to see it, or you wouldn't want, your church leader to see it, then don't post it. And this goes for bullying, bullying behaviors or inappropriate content. Anything that you do can be used against you. So just make sure that they understand that. And then also protecting their PII. And PII stands for personal identifiable information. So this is going to include your name, your email address, your physical address, your phone number, your date of birth, passwords, any 2FA codes that you get, two-factor authentication codes that are texted to you. For kids, the name of your school, your age, the city you live in, your parents' names, all of these things should be kept private in public situations. So if they're gaming online and there are strangers in the chat and things like that, these are the things that should be kept private. The other thing is a lot of kids will put this information in the bio of their social media platforms. So they're on Instagram, they put the city they live or the school they go to, their age on their bio. And even if their entire profile is private, their bio is still public. And so the public can see their age and the school they go to, even if they can't see the rest of the content from the profile. So just making sure anything that should be kept private, all of this PII should be private in a public situation. So never sharing any of this information in the public. And so then content, this is another expectation that you should set. What is inappropriate in our family? So, some families are okay with violence, but are not okay with language. Another family could be okay with language, but not sexual content. So there's a lot of differences between families as to what they consider is inappropriate. And so having that conversation with your family and with your kids about what is going to be considered inappropriate for any punishment or anything like that. So if I catch you sharing anything that is inappropriate or looking things that are inappropriate, these are the consequences that are going to happen. But you need to set what will be considered inappropriate for your family. And then talk about how it's obtained and how it's sent. So sometimes they can come across it accidentally, and let them know that that's not going to get them in trouble. If they are coming across inappropriate content that they're not supposed to be looking at or sharing, and something happened accidentally, that's something that you guys can discuss. Or how is it sent? So if you talk about the different kinds of content that my friend showed this to me on the bus or things like that. These are the expectations that you should set as to like where they may encounter this content that is considered inappropriate in your family. And then usage, you're going to also set expectations about usage. Okay, what kind of time limits are set? Is it going to be available at night, and what time is the internet going to be shut down at night so that they can't access things after that specific time? What kind of content is going to be available when they're supposed to be doing homework or things like that, or how long are they going to be allowed to be on their device? So all of these things are expectations that should be set prior to handing over the device or application. And then interactions. So who are you going to be able to be interacting with? Are you going to allow them to chat with strangers in a game, but make sure that any direct messages are only with people that they know in person? That's a very important expectation to set. And then parents too. So say, hey, we're shutting down the internet at 11 o'clock every night, and this is going to go for the entire family. So if you're not on your phone at after 11 o'clock at night, neither am I. Or with parents, so these interactions, if I'm talking to somebody in person, what's the expectation? I'm going to set my phone down and have a conversation. So if my child comes in to my office and I am in, on the phone, if they are trying to talk to me, again, the expectation is that I also will set my phone down. So the usage can go both ways, and make sure the kids understand that these are not rules just for you. These are rules that should be set in public situations. So these are all the expectations that you really should get together with your family and figure out. So the next section is training. So I always love to compare this to when your child is learning how to drive. So they get their learner's permit at 15 years old, and then they are expected here in Utah, they're expected to drive for 40 hours with a parent before they're allowed to get their driver's license. And the same thing should go for technology as well. You should be with your parent using the technology so that you can understand how to use it appropriately, how to stay safe, because that's really what the driving with the parent is doing for you. I am driving, I'm going to say, okay, you need to stop here, you need to make sure you're checking your blind spot and things like that. So you're really coaching them during this learner's permit process. And 40 hours, I mean, that's a long time to spend in the passenger seat of a car helping your child learn how to drive. So it's the same thing with technology. Just make sure you are with your kid when they're learning how to use this technology so that you can help them avoid these pitfalls. So how exactly are you going to do that? I'm not expecting you to spend 40 hours sitting down with your kid, but it might be fairly close to that. So the thing I really talk about is first start small. So there are very few social media applications that are available for a child under the age of 13. Now, this is because of something called COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, that kind of basically says 13 is sort of the age of accountability for kids. And so when they turn 13, some of these rules change, and big data or big tech companies are now allowed to store personal data from somebody who's over 13. Because they're not allowed to have any information about a child who is under 13, then that is why they basically refuse to let those children sign up for accounts. So if your 10-year-old or 11-year-old wants Instagram or Discord, the law is that they have to be 13 in order for them to have those accounts. And if you kind of explain that, hey, this is a law for a reason, the tech company, so Instagram or Discord, can get in trouble for having your information. They can be sued or things like that. So make sure that they are 13 if they are joining any social media platforms that don't allow it. But there are a couple that do allow it. One is Facebook Messenger Kids. And I think this is a really great social media platform for young kids to start out with. It's got great filters, just like Snapchat, and you can really limit time spent on it. You can limit who they are interacting with, and there's a lot of things that you can do to make sure they are safe on that platform. So start with something small like Facebook Messenger Kids. Then after they turn 13, this is when you can branch out into additional social media. So the one I really like is Be Real. At the moment, it is very safe, and it doesn't have an algorithm, so people aren't going to get sucked into that and spend hours at a time. They're going to open up the app, they're going to share their own photo, they're going to see the photos of all their friends, and then they're going to hop out. So it's a really quick, easy introduction into social media. The next one is so shocking to so many people, and that is TikTok. I know, but TikTok actually has the best parental controls that are built into the application of any application or any other social media application. So it has restrictions where you can restrict that they can't search for content, that they can only see content from people they follow, or they can only get they cannot get direct messages at all, or nobody can see their content. There is so many things that you can set within TikTok that can keep your child safe. So TikTok is a really great way to start out. So the next level would be installing the application, but on a parent's device. So if they want Instagram, and you can even do this with TikTok too. So they want Instagram and they are going to sit down with you on your device and access their Instagram account. So this is really going to help you help them understand how it's used. You can keep an eye on who they're friending and who they, what kind of content they are interacting with. And then this also allows you to train the algorithm together. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about is this training the algorithm. So if you sit down with your child, and you can even do this for yourself as well, you're going to be conscious about what you are doing, that you are physically training the algorithm right now. This is not random scrolling. This, I am consciously, intentionally scrolling through the content to make sure I see more of the content that I like and that I enjoy and less of the content that I don't. So on, say Instagram, if you come across a reel or a TikTok that you don't like, swipe away very quickly. If you like it and you want to see more content either from that creator or more content like that, then make sure you watch the entire thing and maybe watch it a couple times. You can even like it, comment on it. The more you interact with that content, the more that you're going to be shown that type of content. So, and this goes for YouTube, this goes for Instagram, anything really that has this like algorithmic feed. The more you interact with the content, the more you're going to see it. So you can also set, there's a 3 dots and you tap on that and you can say not interested in this content. On TikTok, you just hold and press on the image and then also say not interested. I would be careful. I know really only YouTube has the dislike button, but dislike is also counted as interaction. So even if you're tapping on that dislike button, it's still going to count that as interaction and show you more content that is like that. You have to say not interested in this content instead of hitting the dislike. And so any comments that you leave will help that train the algorithm. So you're going to leave comments on content that you like. You're going to watch the entire thing and you're going to hit that like button. So making sure that your algorithm is only going to show you content that you want to see. So you can sit with your child, train the algorithm together, and make sure that they are interacting with the content that is appropriate. So the next level is they can put it on their own device. So I like, Instagram is really popular with the kids. So if we're ready, we've been training the algorithm, I'm ready to let go a little bit. So now you can install Instagram on your own device. And I would still keep their profile on my device as well. You can have multiple Instagram accounts on your device and you can switch between them. So that way, if it's on their device, you're still seeing messages that are being sent to them. You are still kind of able to see their algorithm and things like that. Or you can install a monitoring tool like Bark. Bark will monitor the direct messages that are sent within Instagram. It can also monitor what YouTube videos they're watching and things like that. So Bark is a really great tool to help with this monitoring. But then I would also set time limits. Make sure that they are not spending all day on that platform. We'll talk a little bit about the Surgeon General's guide, but the amount of time over 3 hours that they're spending on a particular platform is being pointed to as kind of damaging to mental health, and also time limits for nighttime. So making sure they're able to go to bed at an appropriate hour and get that appropriate sleep. And then if they are just using it on their device and you don't have it on your device anymore, I like to perform algorithm checks from time to time. So, okay, hand me your phone. I'm just going to browse through your Instagram and see the kind of content you're being fed. And so if it's a lot of inappropriate content, I can tell that you've been watching inappropriate things. So doing these algorithm checks just to see what kind of content they have been interacting with and what kind of content is being fed to them is important for this level 3. At level 4, this is for your 16, 17-year-olds. This is when I'm okay with Snapchat. I wouldn't allow Snapchat before 16. There's just no real good way to monitor it. Their algorithm, like their feed, is terrible. There's a lot of really bad content. The algorithm doesn't really get what you like, and so it's still just going to feed you this terrible content. You can interact with your friends on that, and that's great, but so Snapchat I would really limit to like after 16, when you're starting to let go of a lot of your parental controls and a lot of your monitoring. And so again, this is limited monitoring, if any monitoring, at that level. So that is training. So the next one is management. And I know all of us can actually use some management as well. I know when I get on TikTok or if I get on Instagram Reels or YouTube is one of my big things. I love watching YouTube videos. I can go down rabbit holes. So you see this YouTube video and then you're like, you see the next one, like, oh, I want to watch that one too. And then I want to watch that one and I want to watch that one. And then 4 hours have gone by and you haven't done anything but browse through YouTube. So avoiding these rabbit holes are not only important for you, but they're definitely important for your children. So we're going to help them avoid being sucked down any of these rabbit holes through management. So the first type of management is going to be app control. And I think this is so important with any child, especially as they are getting a new device, is to control app installs so that they're not allowed to install any applications that that you haven't already approved. So, with Google Family Link, my son would try to install an application. It would send me a notification saying, "Hey, your son wants this application. Do you want to approve it?" And then I can take the time and look into that app, see if I want more information about that app, or if I already know what it is, or we've already talked about it, I can go ahead and approve it. But it's so important to understand what apps your children are using. So controlling these app installs is going to be a huge first step in making sure that they're safe. So you can make sure they're not installing something like Snapchat or something else that you don't approve of. So making sure that that is set. And then the next thing is making sure they also are unable to uninstall applications. One of the top ways that kids get around parental controls is to uninstall the application and then reinstall it. And it basically resets that time limit. And so now they are allowed another hour on that application. So preventing them from uninstalling an application is also important. And you can do these through different parental control apps or the built-in parental controls. So making sure they are not allowed to uninstall, and then setting time limits as to when apps can be used. So, they're not on Instagram at midnight, or they're not doing things on their devices when it is not going to be appropriate. So they're not on Instagram during school time or things like that. So making sure that you are controlling when those apps are available, what apps are available, and not allowing them to uninstall apps. Again, if they happen to get an app through some other means and you're looking at their usage history and you're like, what is this app? I didn't approve this. Like, it's not something that they can uninstall and say, oh, what? That's not on my device. So that's part of management, is the app control. The next one is time limits. So time spent browsing. So if they're just going to browse on the internet, or if they're browsing through a social media platform, make sure that you set a time limit that you have already agreed on for that particular application, or just time spent on their device altogether. And then bedtime shutdowns. We've already talked about this, but sleep is so important for your kids. Please help them get the appropriate amount of sleep. It's so important for their mental health. So making sure the device itself shuts down at a specific time. And it's really important because you can shut down the internet or you can shut down apps at a specific time. But if they've already downloaded something or if a game is available to be played offline, they can still play that unless the device itself shuts down. So that's why it's important to have different kind of layers of parental control. So you have something on the device, or you can also shut down the internet at a specific time. And then homework time. So, during the time when you're supposed to be doing homework. So from the time that you get home from school to 5 o'clock, I am only going to allow these specific websites and things to be available so that you can concentrate on your homework and you don't get distracted. And then, as we just mentioned, overall time on the device, if I only want you to be able to use your laptop for 1 hour a day, that's the time limit I'm going to set, or your phone or your Nintendo or something like that. And then on demand, one of my favorite things to do in the summer is shut down the internet and shut down devices first thing in the morning. So I wake up before everybody else. And then when my children wake up, whatever time that is, we don't have set, wake up times during the summer. So whenever they wake up, they are not able to use the internet or their devices until I have confirmed that they've done their chores. So they go through this checklist, spending time outside, mowing the lawn, unloading the dishwasher, things like that. After they've done all their chores, then I open up the device. So you can set limits and just on demand where I can just shut down access to the device. So this works if they're grounded or things like that. So on demand is the other time limit. So how can I tell? This is a question I get a lot. When my child is spending too much time on devices or on the internet. So the first thing I like to really key into is behavioral changes. So if my child is playing a video game and I can see that they're increasingly getting more frustrated and they're getting more angry for little things, then it's time to shut down access to that video game. So, I don't set like hard, fast time limits. I'll explain that in a minute. But as I'm looking at them and as I'm monitoring their behavior, whether they've only been on the computer or on their game for a half an hour or they've been on it for 2 hours, I can tell, okay, it's really time to shut this down right now. And then reports from the devices. So if you look at their usage history and you can see that they're spending, 3 hours on a particular app, then you can understand that, okay, we're going to change this up and shut down access at a specific times. And then just other signs of addiction where they're nervous when they're not on the device, or other things like that where it just seems like they have to be touching their device or things like that. So make sure you're keyed into those different signs of addiction. And so when I was talking about time limits, I'll go back to that really quick. So I don't set hard, fast time limits. You can only spend this much time a day on a device, and especially during the summer, but I will set an initial time limit. So, say they get, a half an hour of free time every day. And so once that half an hour is up, then they have to request a time extension or additional time. And when they request that, I can monitor, okay, I can check their behavior. I can see, I'm like, oh, okay, hey, why don't you go outside for like an hour and then I'll give you more time. Or, hey, why don't you do this other thing? Or why don't you read a book? And it gives them these natural breaks throughout the day where I'm not monitoring the overall time, but I am having them check in at different time increments and then granting additional access as I can see that things are going well. So those are the things about management. But now let's talk about content monitoring. And a lot of people can get kind of confused with this term. So I really like to use this example of Netflix. So I can get a report that somebody was watching 5 hours of Netflix, and that's going to be management, right? I can set a time limit for Netflix for, a specific amount of time. Well, what are they watching on Netflix during that time? That would be the content monitoring. So I can see they watched this show and this show and this show. So the shows as opposed to the time spent. So that's kind of the difference between monitoring versus management. So the previous slide was about management. This is all about monitoring. And this is really more about content. Now, I will say when it comes to content monitoring, Apple devices and Android devices view this very differently. Apple will be so concerned with the privacy of the child that even if it's a child, even if their user is 10 years old, and Android, not so much. So Apple doesn't play nicely with third-party monitoring platforms like Bark because of this privacy lockdown. And so Bark can't gain access to the areas of the phone that it needs to monitor the content appropriately. So when your child is starting out, I would absolutely start them with an Android device. When we get up to that 16, 17, fine, they can use an Apple device because you are monitoring less. The management portion is kind of similar. You can set time limits on apps and time limits on the device, but it's the monitoring where you're really going to be lacking if your child has an Apple device. So what kind of things can help with this content monitoring? So viewing content, you can set a filter on your Wi-Fi, and this is something you can do today. So OpenDNS is a great platform. It is free. You just change one setting in your Wi-Fi router, and now all of the content is being filtered through OpenDNS, and you can shut down access to different types of categories like gambling or pornography or things like that. So a filter on your Wi-Fi network is so important. And then you can back that up with software filters. So something like NetNanny or ESET is something that you're going to install on the device itself that's going to filter content on that particular device. I also like Canopy for viewing content, or a software filter for the device. So Canopy actually utilizes AI technology and allows you to block content in real time. So even Google image searches, the inappropriate images would be blocked because of the way Canopy works. So software filters are great. And then setting up profiles. So smart TVs, I get a lot of questions about parental controls on smart TVs. And so you can shut down access to specific apps, but if you want to allow something like Netflix, then you can set up a profile on Netflix and password protect the adult profile and allow them access to very specific content that is age appropriate for a younger profile. So setting up these different profiles, especially on streaming services, is going to really help monitor, or not monitor, but kind of filter out that content for those devices. So, and then sharing content. Again, we're talking about sharing inappropriate images. You can tell your children, these are the kind of things that you should never share online or even privately with somebody else. So don't send a picture of your private parts to somebody else. So never sharing inappropriate images. And then speak as you would to their face. A lot of people, when you're behind a keyboard, it can be so easy to just type out something that's inappropriate or something that can be considered bullying or not nice. So speak online as you would to a person's face. And so a lot of kids get on their soapbox about privacy when it comes to content monitoring. They say, don't you trust me? I deserve privacy. I'm a human, and things like that. So there are two things I kind of relate this to. So parental controls, I relate to a seatbelt in the car. It's not that the government doesn't trust us to stay seated in the car when we're driving. That's not why seatbelts are required. They're required because if I get into an accident or something happens, I am protected. And that's what parental controls are. It's not that I don't trust you, it's that I need protections in place for when something goes wrong. And so it's not about trust, it's about protection. And then same thing with the privacy. The privacy argument. I always just say nobody has privacy online, not even adults, like I mentioned earlier. So no, you don't have privacy when I can monitor and help you avoid some of these pitfalls. I also use the example of celebrities getting canceled because of something they tweeted 10 years ago. And so I'm like, something can come back to bite you no matter how private you think it is or how appropriate you think it is. So I'm here to kind of be the buffer for that and make sure that anything that you're sharing is going to not come back to bite you in the future. So, and then as you're monitoring, don't jump to conclusions. This is one of my favorite examples to share, that my son, I got an alert that said he was looking up sexual content. I look at the alert and it says he did a Google search for bouncy balls. So we had a good laugh about that, because making sure that they are appropriate. I'm like, hey, look, you were looking up bouncy balls. You were in so much trouble. We had a good laugh. So don't jump to conclusions. Make sure that you are approaching these with a loving attitude. So that actually leads into this last section, which is communication. This is not a one and done conversation. This is communication that should be constantly happening, and happening at a very early age. So starting out, don't make it weird. Just make sure that, you don't need to say, okay, folks, we're going to have this conversation now. So just have these small conversations throughout the day. Take advantage of silent moments. Turn off the radio in your car and have these conversations. Have a family meeting, and use a contract like the contract that is available to you through this webinar. And be honest about what you are doing with parental controls and with all of these things. Make sure you're not sneaky about it. Show them exactly what the parental control can do and what you are going to be looking for. And then checking in. Like I said, these are frequent conversations. Ask what they're doing. If you see them laughing at something on their phone, hey, what was so funny? Have them bring you into their world. Oh, like, I see you're playing Minecraft. What are you building today? Get involved and ask these questions, and they're going to be so appreciative of it. And then talk about the news. When I see something in the news, and a sextortion, or somebody took their life or something because of something on technology, I'll show these to my kids, and not in a fear-based way. Just say, hey, did you see this news article? That's so sad. Or, what could you do to avoid ending up in this situation? Or, what mistakes were made? What mistakes did the parents make? What mistakes did the child make? So really talking about what's going on in the news is so important, and really helps kind of keep those conversations going. And then discuss online challenges. So again, I always say, be where your kids are sharing. So if they're on TikTok, be on TikTok, and you can see what kind of things are trending. And so you see a challenge that's trending, that's dangerous, you can talk to them about that. Hey, did you see this trending challenge? Oh my gosh, do you see how dangerous that can be? And talk to them about that and discuss that. And then again, catch them doing good, like with the bouncy balls. I like to, if I get an alert for something and I can see that my child responded in a very appropriate way, I can say, hey, I saw that your friend was struggling about this and you responded like that. I'm just so proud of you. It was such a good response. So catch them doing good. And then if you do come across an issue, which you will, the age of exposure to pornography is around 8 years old. You need to be having these conversations at a very young age. If you do come across something, approach calmly and with love. Don't jump to conclusions. Ask for context. Say, hey, I saw that this was happening. Can you tell me more about what the situation was? And then come up with a plan to help them avoid that in the future, or to how to mitigate the situation and repair any damage that they've caused. So those are the kind of things that you should have these discussions about. I'd love to talk about this Surgeon General warning. I love this advisory. The Surgeon General came out with this social media and youth mental health advisory. I highly recommend you read through it. I'm not a person who is super on board with government involvement in a lot of technology. And so when I read this, I came to it very suspectfully, or, very suspect, right? And I read through it and I thought it was perfect. It talks about the positives and the negatives of social media, because there are positives to be had. But it also talks about real action items that you can do to help improve this mental health crisis. So one of them is setting these time limits. It talked about bedtime. It talked about how a child who spent over 3 hours on a social media platform and then reduced that to under 3 hours. I think it was around like 30 minutes a day, and their mental health improved through this, through these, through just that time reduction. It didn't take it away from them completely. It just reduced the time spent, and that helped improve the mental health. It also talks about algorithms, how you can use social media as a treat. Like I said, if you're spending 3 hours a day eating cupcakes, that's not going to be very healthy for you. So again, if you reduce that to like one cupcake a day, or use 30 minutes a day of social media and treat it like a treat after you have done your chores, after you have done your homework and things, then that really helps kind of put it in its place and making sure you're more intentional about your use. And then having safe and healthy digital environments. And then it talks about brain development too. So it's a really great advisory. I definitely recommend everyone read it. If you just Google the Surgeon General's warning, it's great to check out. So parental controls, every family is different. Again, like I mentioned, making sure you keep control, time limits. It really helps eliminate the nagging, and it can be more automatic. So, making sure that you set these parental controls, so important. So, what can schools do to help? I think one of the biggest things that schools can do to help is to eliminate phones during class. They talk about how a notification on your phone, it takes kids 15 minutes to get back into like learning mode from this distraction. And so, if your child's school does allow phones in class, don't text them during the day. Try to reduce the amount of notifications that they get, or maybe even turn off access to very specific apps during the school day so they're not getting distracted. And phones should be in the backpacks or put away during class so that those distractions don't derail all of the education that they need to get from the class. And then how can communities help? I think something really important is to set up workshops for parents kind of like this, and make sure that parents, grandparents, foster parents know that there are parental controls. There are tools that they can use to help them make sure that their children or grandchildren, or the children that they are in charge of, are using technology appropriately. And so helping them understand those ways is going to be a really important thing for our community, to just make sure, lift everybody and make sure everybody has that education and that knowledge. So I did mention a few of these products. If you want a list of the products, you can go to familytech.biz /tools to get links to these products and some codes to reduce the price of some of these products. So you can check all of that out there. And then resources, a really great resource in your research phase is the ESRB. That's going to help with games and apps really understand what is available or what kind of content is in those applications. And then Common Sense Media is another great location that actually reviews podcasts, it reviews YouTube channels and things like that, and also has parent input as to what they think of those channels or apps or devices or anything like that. And then, definitely check out the Surgeon General's warning. So just a quick little plug for this Operation Parent resource. I've got it right here. It has a lot of really great information. So I will pass it over to Michelle to talk a little bit more about the Operation Parent resource. So thanks, everyone.
Great presentation. Thank you for packing so much information in such a short amount of time. And we've got a lot of questions that we'll get right to. But before, we wanted everyone to know our handbooks are chocked full with tech information. We touch on healthy tech habits, phones and gaming, and how to ramp up your conversations with your teens, and great points to sit down and think about in terms of screen time, high dopamine, low dopamine activities, just this emphasis that we're trying to place on balance, look at things from all angles. The parent handbook really helps you to do that as well. In the middle and high, we've got information about sexting and porn as well, which every parent wants to stay ahead of as well. So you can go to our website, operationparent.org/shop at any point in time, and check out samples of our handbooks, as well as think about ordering them. You can also keep in touch with Sarah. I'm not kidding when I really want you to, if you are a YouTube user or a fan of Instagram, that's where I'm following her the most, but Facebook is also well. Just you'll get some reminders about content and some things that she's covering, and anything tech related that's hitting the news or popular. Sarah has usually some quick content and some thoughts on where parents might want to dig in and learn more. So we appreciate everything that you're putting out into the universe, Sarah, for us to learn these things quickly because it's changing so quickly. So we got to work to stay ahead, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you did repeat the filters that you love on that resource slide. Would you mind to say those out loud one more time for one of our guests, the filters that you like?
Yeah, sure. So it depends on kind of where you are filtering, but on the Wi-Fi, OpenDNS. If you just go to opendns.com, there's also another one called Clean Browsing. It's similar to OpenDNS, so you can look at both of those and choose which one you prefer. The other ones that are on the device would be Canopy. Is my favorite one for on device. You can also check out NetNanny or ESET, which is also an antivirus program, but ESET, it can also help filter content. So those are kind of the ones that I recommend.
Awesome. Okay, very good. What kind of advice do you give us? A parent asked about teens that work their way around the parental controls on the iPhone. Maybe they're old enough to figure out your password strategy, which might not be very strong if you're using birthdays or things like that. But what do you recommend? Like maybe the conversation, if that's happened in your home, what could be some of the talking points with your teen to sort of build that relationship and working together on it?
Yeah, for the most part, again, conversations are going to be super important to help a kid who's kind of circumventing your parental controls. I do have a YouTube video about the different ways that kids circumvent parental controls. That one is very popular with the kids. So make sure, I'm always, I want to comment back, well, I hope your parents saw this video before you saw it. So that they can
Sure.
kind of eliminate those ways. But that nothing's going to be perfect, and so the more conversations that you have about that, the better it's going to kind of turn out. But if we're already at the point where we're circumventing, talk to them about why they feel the need to circumvent, and again, establish expectations that if they try to circumvent, or if you notice any of these circumvention methods, then this is the punishment, or this is the consequence that's going to happen when I get notified of these. I will say iPhones are much easier to circumvent the parental controls than an Android. Like I mentioned before, it doesn't play nicely with third parties, so they're very easy to get around. Plus, the iOS built-in screen time parental controls is currently not working properly. There was something in the Wall Street Journal about this. They have not fixed it yet, but it can wipe out the parental controls just on its own. So again, I would highly recommend an Android device, especially if they are continuing to circumvent. That can be part of the consequence. You say, hey, next time I notice that this is happening, you're getting an Android device and I'm going to lock it down even further. So, the fact that they don't want to lose their iPhone might be a really good motivation for them to stop doing that as well.
That is a really great motivation. And also, I know we as parents, one of the reasons we do that is so that they get better sleep. We're
Right.
learning more and more about like how important their sleep is. So the Android discussion plus reminding them like how much your brain is developing and how much sleep you really need um, would be maybe a good place to go for the learning curve.
Yeah.
Um, so the audience, and I love this too, where you talk about coming up with a presentation if you want a phone, a game, an app.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about the success that you've had with that in your own home and what you've heard clients say about how that's been helpful when they've used that?
Yeah, for sure. Especially like, with my own kids, like I mentioned in the presentation, it really helps them look at both objectively. And especially if they come to you the first time and it's all positives, you're like, okay, you didn't do this, go back and let's try again. And so when they really understand the negative impact of whatever it is they want, then they can use that when they get it to help them kind of avoid that negativity. So, so that's the thing I've seen in my home. One of the parenting wins I think I've seen, as a result of this is my daughter. She's going to be 18 in a few weeks, so I've really let go of a lot of the parental controls and things. And she came to me last year during the school year and was like, "Hey, I'm spending too much time on Instagram. Can you just tell me I'm grounded and I'll disable it on my phone for like a week?" And I'm like, "Okay, sounds good. Like, do you want
Wow.
me to install a parental control and I can like disable it for you?" She's like, "No, no, no, I got it. Like I know how to use the digital well-being inside the Android." And so she like really kind of took that on her own, saying like, "I am not in a place where I can just stop. I need to do something a little extra." And that's something that we all can take advantage of as well. Like putting parental controls on your own devices is helpful
For
when
sure.
you feel like you're just spending too much time in a specific area. So I think that was kind of the win I saw when they see that it's having a negative impact on them, and so they need to do something to mitigate that. So
That's a huge win and very self-aware.
yeah.
I love that. That's huge. So good. She's absorbing everything that she hears you talking about all day. That must feel great as a
Yeah, for
parent
sure.
for sure, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I really just think that the presentation really helps them understand everything that it can do and the bad things that it can do, because they always just want to focus on this is the awesome stuff it's going to do for me. And so helping them have that dichotomy to understand this is why we need to discuss it a little bit more, because not everything is going to be completely safe for you.
I'm glad you included that reminder for us not to text our students while they're at school unless it really is urgent,
Yeah.
because I had to call myself to task on that when I learned how much learning
Same.
time they're losing and looked at some of the things I was texting them. But also it strengthens their planning muscle to know, like, I'm not going to be texting you about the pickup plan. We got to talk about it the night before, and
Right.
I mean, I was surprised about how often I was picking up my phone and just shooting them as something that came to mind
Yeah.
in the middle of the day. So I have put
Same.
myself to task and in time out on the texting things that are not urgent during the school day. And um, I've heard principals say most times when they have to take a phone away from a student in class, or not most, but often it's because the parent has texted them during
Right.
the class, right?
It's
So
so true. Yeah, I've
yeah,
heard the same. Yeah.
it's good for us to keep that in mind. Okay, and then let's see here. You talked so eloquently about the rhythms that your feed gets into, the algorithms. Um, so
The algorithms. Yeah.
Someone, yeah. Thank you so much. So they're asking how long they were thinking on TikTok. It looks at how long you spend on a video,
Hmm.
even more so than if you say like you don't want to see it, you click that you're not interested in that content. Um, but can you kind of just speak to that in general? Um, how the
Sure.
TikTok go? Yeah.
Well, the TikTok algorithm is actually extremely good. It's probably the best. And I feel like I'm a walking, billboard for TikTok, but I'm really not. But it has the best parental controls and the best algorithm. So their algorithm learns very quickly what you like, and what you're going to be interacting with. So, watching something all the way through, liking it, commenting on it, all of these things are going to like basically give that content points. So you're going to see more stuff from that content creator, and you're going to see more related stuff to that. So if it's got some hashtags on that content, it's going to show you things that are related to that content. It does take into account that not interested, but even if you select that you're not interested, but you're watching anytime that content comes, it's going to make that more important than what you said that you're not interested in. So just make sure you swipe very quickly from something that you don't want to interact with or something you don't want to continue to see more of, and watch everything that you do want to see more of all the way through. Those are the kind of two main parts of training the algorithm.
Hmm. Yeah, and I notice on Instagram too, it very quickly picks up on like whatever you're searching.
Yeah.
So I notice like my feed at nighttime is recipes and desserts. And I'm
Right.
like, this is not the best strategy because I'm now hungry
So
before like I'm trying
hungry.
to like settle down. But
Yeah.
thinking about that in terms of more more risky content, or
Hmm.
even like let's say teens are searching like exercises, like they just want to do some exercises or bulk up or strengthen, or um, that can quickly go to more exercises, diets,
Hmm.
kind of extreme dieting fads kind of thing. And so when you were teaching us to just kind of keep an eye on what are what's in your feed for you,
Hmm.
this content is for you, like where are they taking themselves, as well as holding ourselves accountable for where we're taking ourselves and when. um, but we've had a great expert on eating disorders talk about how that the feed can take teens down some dangerous rabbit holes pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
for sure.
But I love what you're saying on both sides, that that TikTok, even though we hear tough things about that, that there are ways to protect and use the parental controls and all those
Well,
things. So,
the tough things we hear about it is more on the privacy side. So I'm not giving them a pass on that, but
that's right.
on and that's just more to do with like the privacy of the data on your phone.
Yep.
But honestly, again, TikTok gets a bad rap for that. But Facebook, Instagram, everybody else is doing the exact same thing. It's just that the U.S. government doesn't have control over the data that's getting collected like they do for Instagram, and so that's why they get really on TikTok's case, because they have no control over that data collection. So um,
Got it.
that's my soapbox on that
It
one.
makes sense. Um, hey, do you gravitate towards shutting down a device at a specific time at night, or using a usage limit, or are there cases that you would um, gravitate between the two of those things?
Yeah, like I mentioned with the usage limit, I grant small windows of time throughout the day. So I don't generally keep track of how long they've spent on it for the entire day. I just grant small windows of time, and if they use that, then I can say, okay, you can have some more time, or I need you to do this and this, or go to the bathroom, or go get a snack, or whatever, just to kind of give them those natural breaks. So if I were to choose between one or the other, bedtime is absolutely what I would choose. Just shutting down devices and internet at a specific time every night. Like I said, I cannot preach getting at least 8 hours of sleep for you and for the kids. More. That's like I would say if I were to stand on any platform, it would be that, like just making sure the kids and you are getting enough sleep.
Hmm. Our next parent, and I think many of us have been in this boat. I can say I have been as well. Um, if teens are using their devices away from us quite a bit of the time, I mean, they're using them so much at school right now as well. That's locked down a little bit there, but they're using their devices away. And then if they are, I don't want to say that like hiding it because they're doing bad things, but they feel like the full invasion of the privacy when you do try and get back in there and just double check some of these things. So it's like this, the pull and tug. This parent described it as kind of feeling like the villain.
Yeah.
And then the teen not feeling trusted, which is just, it's a tough pull and tug.
Yeah.
So do you have some advice for us there? You've given us good advice all throughout, but can you remind us as we're about to head out of here, give us a pep talk on that?
So the setting the expectations is going to be the most important thing, I would say. If I allow you to use this device, this is the expectation that I'm going to check it from time to time to make sure you're safe. And again, I like the seatbelt analogy. You know, it's not that the government doesn't trust us to stay in our seats when we're driving. It's that they're there to protect you. And so I would really use that seatbelt analogy and say, you know, this is law because it's protecting you, not because the government doesn't trust you. And so if you're going to use this device, it's not that I don't trust you, it's that, you know, maybe I don't trust other people online. I want to make sure that people aren't reaching out to you that shouldn't be. I want to make sure you're looking at appropriate things. So, and I'm doing all of this to protect you for, you know, your adult life and for the future.
Beautiful. What's the best thing we can do as parents to set a good example or to role model a good example with technology?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, just making sure that some of the rules we set, we also abide by. So, you know, my son, when we were having a discussion about privacy, he's like, "How would you like it if I looked through your phone? I hand over my phone." I'm like, "Go ahead." You know, so things like that where the rule isn't just for them, you know, the internet shuts down at night for me too. So making sure that they understand that I'm not setting these rules just because I am trying to be mean or I'm trying to, you know, have control over you. I'm also abiding by some of these rules because I know that it's not healthy for me to be on the internet at midnight or whatever. So, you know, making sure the rules that they understand that the rules I'm setting I am also abiding by a lot of these rules too. And that's one thing in my tech contract where it also has some expectations for the parent that I'm agreeing to while I am signing this contract, because it should be a contract between both of you where I have to do things and you have to do things.
Oh, very good. That's the power punch at the end, Sarah. Thank you so much for everything
Yeah.
you've taught us. Well, I want to just let the audience know a couple of things about Operation Parent as we are coming to close here. We have an outstanding new website. It's even easier to use. So following this webinar, I would love for you all to take a minute and check out our website, as I mentioned before, at operationparent.org. We have handbooks, several types of handbooks. They are covering topics like tech, of course, social media, vaping, drugs, and mental health. And these handbooks give caregivers big time support while they're talking to teens about staying healthy. We have several editions. We've got elementary, middle, high, Christian, and Spanish editions available, all right there on the website at operationparent.org/shop. Our call to action with these webinars and our handbooks is just that we want to provide families hope. That's at the core of our mission. We know that our handbooks have saved lives by empowering parents with very pertinent information at just the right time. And we're so committed to keep doing that, that we offer these webinars for free and we'll continue to do so. And we also provide free shipping on the handbook orders. I would really, really hope that you will go onto the website just to check out the new website, but also check out the shop because you can look at samples of our handbooks there and see exactly what I'm talking about. We also have a newer product that's called TNT, and our community advocate team would love to talk to you about our new product and how it's being used at schools and with drug-free coalitions and churches all across the country. Um, they're checking out this new product as well as utilizing our handbooks in a lot of creative and different ways. So I hope that you will reach out if you'd like to know more information about how the handbooks are being used or our new TNT program. And you can also let us know your interest about that in the survey. So I want to thank each of you so much for giving us your valuable time this afternoon. And Sarah, thank you for sharing your knowledge and what you're doing every day just to keep families ahead of the game. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. It's what I love to do.
All righty, we'll see you again very soon on September 26th. So I hope each of you guys will come back and join us for the second session of this tech series with Family Tech. So we'll be back to do that soon, and I hope each of you has a really great afternoon.